when working from home, even putting on shoes, you get dressed and you put on shoes and you say, when I wear shoes, I'm at work. And at the end of the day, I kick off my shoes and close my computer and I'm done. And those kind of mental rituals create the same thing that a commute will do, right? It's that mental transition away from home into work and vice versa.
Welcome to Change Your Mindset podcast, where it's all about believing in and executing on different and innovative ways to strengthen both your leadership and communication skills to help increase your success, and especially in today's disruptive business environment. One of the most effective ways of building stronger leadership and communication skills is by embracing the principles of improvisation. Yes, that's right, improv. Your host, Peter Margaritis, is an improv virtuoso. He's also a certified speaking professional and a CPA, also known as the Accidental Accountant. Each episode of Change Your Mindset is designed to bring you different and innovative ideas, thoughts, and behavioral changes on a variety of differing topics, with the sole purpose of strengthening your critical soft skills. We may call them soft skills, but they are the hardest to master. And when we do, greater success and growth is the result. So jump in and start changing your mindset now. Let's start the show.
How much are you emailing, using Slack or Jabber during your workday? Are you on back-to-back Zoom meetings and experiencing Zoom fatigue? Do you find yourself procrastinating your most important work and doing easier things first just so you can cross it off your list and feel good about it? Can you find time to focus on your most important work in order to move your business forward? Well, those questions and more will be discussed by my guest, Jake Kahana, who's a designer, entrepreneur, and a teacher. Jake is the co-founder of CaveDay, a company founded to maximize productivity for individuals and corporations through facilitated deep focus sessions and deep work training. Their global community has participated in over 10,000 hours of deep work in the cave. As a founding U.S. faculty member with the School of Life, Jake teaches workshops in emotional intelligence for corporate teams. He speaks at conferences and companies around the world. He's proud to have his work as part of the permanent collection at the Museum of Modern Art and his parents' fridge since 1989. Currently, Jake is working on the Creative Department, a management training consulting curriculum for creative leaders. The Cave is a group of people, otherwise known as Cavedwellers, working on their most important work for a focused period of time. This focused period of time is called a sprint, and there are 1 sprint or 3 sprints, which equates to 1 hour and 3 hour focused periods of time. Cavedwellers start with the hardest things first. They monotask and eliminate all distractions, close all tabs on their browsers, turn their cell phones off, mute notifications, etc. It's a fascinating process, and it's amazing how much important work you can get done in the allotted time frame. Currently, all sessions are done remotely, and Jake is looking forward to doing them live and in person sometime in the near future, as well as having them available remotely. To learn more, go to www.caveday.org, and maybe I'll even see you in one of the cave sessions. Before we get to the interview, just a couple of housekeeping items.
This podcast is part of the C-Suite Radio Network, turning the volume up on business.
This episode is sponsored by Peter A. Margaritis, LLC, also known as the Accidental Accountant. Are you looking for a speaker that can bring powerful content, virtually or in person or on-site, that is memorable and engaging in a way that motivates and inspires your audience? Instead of data dumping and numbing with numbers, imagine your people and teams delivering a financial story to your stakeholders. A story that creates engaging and relationship-building business conversations. Would you be interested in learning more about how that is accomplished? How would you feel if the value your facilitator provided your organization far exceeded the dollar amount on their invoice? Peter Margaritis, CPA and certified speaking professional, delivers all of the above and much, much more. All of Peter's programs can be done virtually, in person and on site at your location, or at an off-site venue. Send Peter a note at peter@petermargaritis.com and or visit his website at www.petermargaritis.com to learn more about what Peter can bring to your next conference, management retreat, or workshop.
Now, let's get to the interview with Jake Kahana. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Man, do I have an important guest today, and someone that you really need to listen to. Jake, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to have a conversation with my audience around your work. So first and foremost, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Peter. Excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here. So in doing my research, deep focus I keep hearing about and seeing your name associated with and listening to some of the other podcast interviews that you've done. Oh, excuse me, squirrels. No, wrong. That's not deep focus, right? That's a distraction. So can you give us some insight into what's your definition of deep focus and the work that you're doing currently?
Sure. I think it's helpful to start with sort of the opposite of that. Let's talk about shallow work for a second. I think a lot of us have this experience of doing shallow work every day. And Microsoft did a study about 3 years ago that said that the average focus time at work is 40 seconds at a time. And obviously part of that is external distractions, right? Our coworkers sending us an email, maybe our phone buzzes, but we also get in our own way a lot. I know that sometimes I'll start an email, it'll get hard. And as soon as I'm not sure what to write, I'll open up another tab and I have to, edit a Google Doc. And so I start writing that. And you know what? I have to check my bank account. And I open up my bank, but it's loading slowly. So let me just open up Amazon. And suddenly I'm buying toilet paper when I was supposed to be writing an email. And this idea of shallow work is what a lot of us are used to. It's sort of this reactive, as the work comes in, I'm just trying to get it off my plate, answer emails, answer Slack messages, get back to colleagues and clients and those kinds of things. But when it comes to the kind of important work that will make our days feel more productive and make us feel more accomplished at the end of the week and really make our careers more fulfilling, it requires deep work. And we define deep work as focus without distraction on a demanding task. Now, we spend very little of our time doing that, but the more that we can sort of prioritize the important work in our days and then in our lives, that project, that podcast, that company, that new product that you want to launch, that requires sort of focused attention without distraction in order to get that kind of work done. You want to write a book as part of your, career or legacy or whatever, that requires sort of prioritizing that work and really focusing on the stuff that matters, not just the emails and Slack messages.
I've got this huge smile, kind of laugh on my face because I think you just described my last 4 hours here today. Mm-hmm. And thinking about the deep work, I've got some Post-it flip charts up on how I'm trying to redesign my business, which requires deep focus, and trying to write another book. But I'm playing in the shallow pool way too much.
Yeah, and we all do it because it feels good to have these short bursts of crossing things off our list, to clear out our inbox, to know that, hey, I have to respond to that thing and I'm just going to get to it. And it takes a lot more effort and we're rewarded less often by prioritizing those things. It doesn't feel good to sort of sit with that book and write a 200-page book over the course of 9 months and struggle with that process. We don't get those intermittent rewards that we do, like when we check our phones or when we respond to an email. And so it requires a different kind of thinking, a different kind of motivation, and a different kind of structure for our work. So in thinking about deep work and deep focus, does it also go with when are we the most productive? I'm a morning person. I don't know how I became a morning person, but I'm a morning person. And I know that at about 3:00 in the afternoon, my mental capacity, my desire, that's when I really should be reading my emails. Yeah. Yeah. So, I think there are different kinds of workers, right? I'm a morning person too. I wake up at 5:45 every morning. I do my best thinking before 10 a.m. And I know that there are night owls too. My co-founder tends to do his best thinking between 7 and 10 p.m. It's fine. What we've, not us personally, but what the science of productivity has shown is that everyone has a peak, a trough, and a rebound. Sort of this time when you're most focused, your brain is at its highest energy. We all have that trough, that low point of, that 3:00 crash, that after lunch, needing a coffee, pick me up. And then we all have that little rebound. And most people, there's been thousands of workers, that have been studied that show that most people's peak tends to be between, I think it's like 10 and 11:30 a.m.
Right.
And the trough tends to be that 2 to 4, and that rebound comes right after. And like you said, it really whatever works for you, but scheduling your day by taking your most important, highest priority work and putting that in the time where you're doing your highest energy, when you have your highest energy, and doing the sort of administrative, easy stuff when you have the low, your trough. Because it doesn't make sense to be spending time in emails and scheduling when your brain is like firing on all cylinders.
So, in full transparency, I'm a procrastinator. I'm an improviser. I can write it in my calendar. I can put it in my full focus planner. I can put it in one of my top 3, and I've got an erasable ink pen. I can put it in my Google Calendar, and I find myself and I think others that we know that we do our best work. But there's just something about getting, I think it's to your point. Oh, look at all these little things I can take care of and feel good about. I've made accomplishments versus. So how do we begin to change our mindset and really, is there some tips or techniques that you can share to help us be focused when we need to be focused?
There's a great book and research done by author Gretchen Rubin. Her book is called Better Than Before, which outlines the 4 tendencies. It's another book. But it's this idea of like, how are we motivated? How do we pick up habits? And some of us are obligers. Some of us are upholders, rebels, or questioners. And it's this idea that when there are rules, how do we respond? So I know that I am an upholder, which means if there is a rule, I will uphold it. Meaning I can say, I put this on my calendar, I'm going to do it. I made the rule, I keep it. Some of us are obligers, which means I need someone else. I need to sort of be obliged to someone. So if I need to really do this work, I need to say, hey, Peter, I'm going to send you my presentation by Friday. If you can just sort of, respond to it or tell me that you got it. You're going to hold me accountable. It's the same thing why we have workout buddies and book clubs and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then there are questioners who are sort of like, I'm on a diet, but it's my partner's birthday. I'm going to have a piece of cake. They question everything and make sure it makes sense for the given situation. And rebels are the opposite, right? There's a rule and I'm going to go against it. So I'm not promoting her book, but she has a little quiz that you can take to identify which of the 4 tendencies you are that will help you do that. So I'm going to do a little bit of a self-plug. I'm sure we'll have some time later, but CaveDay offers facilitated deep work where you can join our sessions, be around a group of people, join us on Zoom and do some deep work around other people so that when you get stuck, you can sort of look up and see 80 other people working hard, and it's helpful to sort of keep us on track.
So tell me more about CaveDay, and we'll circle back here in a second. But I went out to the website and I looked at it and I went, okay. And you do offer these remotely using Zoom. Mm-hmm. So I've got 15, 20 people in a gallery view, and I'm doing deep work. So the audio's off, but the video's on. So everybody's on mute and we're working.
Yeah.
And we can look up and go, oh, look, everybody else is working. So I need to get back to work.
Yeah. That's basically the concept. I think we've added some extra layers in it in terms of, we've tried to create a space that we call a transformative space, where the rules in this space are different than the rules out in the world. We did a lot of research in terms of things like funerals, things like adventure clubs, things like sex parties, We did a lot of reading, not attending, to feel like we really understand how do we create an environment where the rules here are different than the rules out there. And part of what we do is we create an opening and a closing of every cave. We call our sessions caves. So when you come into the cave, we do a welcome circle. We check in. What are you working on today? We break you out into little groups so that you get to know people a little bit better. And I get to say, I'm Jake. I'm calling from New Jersey. I'm working on my newsletter today. I'm going to leave out checking my email. It's important that we identify what's going to distract us in the cave, leave things out. And the same thing at the end of every cave. We say, what was your accomplishment today? What is one win you can share from today? And part of that is, when we're working at home by ourselves, and most of us are these days, we don't have anyone around us to say, I got so much done today, or that thing I've been putting off for months and months and months, I finally, put up my blog or whatever. And when we're in the cave, when we have this facilitator, when we have this community around us sort of supporting our work, it feels really good. So that what I was talking about before, when you're, slogging through writing that book for 9 months or 2, 3, 5 years without any sort of intermittent rewards, what we're trying to do is sort of feel like we're making incremental progress and getting rewarded for that. So not only is there this opening and closing ritual, but we also break down the time. So science shows us that our brains can focus for at most 52 minutes at a time. So in the cave, we break down our work into like 40 to 50 minute work sprints. And in between, we take group breaks. So it might be anything from a stretch to a breakout room where you're talking about, what are you looking forward to this weekend? It's a chance to counteract some of the negative effects of working remotely, specifically isolation and feeling drained at the end of the day. So the more that we can create some physical activity, the more that we can connect with each other, the more that energy gets funneled into our work, and we can end our day not only feeling accomplished, but feeling energized.
So when you join a group or be part of it, is it for 90 minutes? Is it for a full day? What's that time frame around that?
Currently, at the time of recording, our sessions are 3.5 hours long.
Okay.
It's a half day. So we have an early morning session, a morning session, and an afternoon session. Those are East Coast times. We're currently in the process. I'll say right now, this is being recorded in mid-May, and we're currently in the process of expanding our schedule and offering shorter sessions. So likely by the time this airs, there will be, 1 hour sessions, 2.5 hour sessions, 3.5 hour sessions. And you can join us for, any of them.
Yeah, this will air, I believe it's July 9th. So we're still a few months away, but I can see how you're modifying the product offering and to meet the variety of different needs, because if I need something, I just need an hour just to power through.
Right.
In 3.5 hours might be too much. How long ago did you start CaveDay?
Sure. We started in January of 2017. That was our first event. And it was really meant to be very casual. Me and my two co-founders, my good friends, Molly and Jeremy, we had this idea that, hey, we like getting stuff done. Our friends have projects. What if we started the year doing some research, creating this event where we would spend a day just working together and feeling energized. And so we got catering, we sold tickets, and, we had 50 people at the first event. It was a full day in New York City, and we sold out, and we made $300 each or something like that. And I was like, oh, that was cool. This is something, everyone was like, I got so much done, and I feel energized, and I made new friends. I would do this every day. And so for about the first year, we ran once a month. It was a full Sunday that was people coming together as an event to get their stuff done. And over the course of the years, we've changed our model. So instead of it being a one-off event that we sell tickets to, now we sell membership. We run currently 6 days a week. I think over 50 sessions a month.
Wow.
And so we've got people joining us. So we started doing remote things about 1.5 years ago. And when all of this COVID stuff happened, I think the first week of March, we shifted everything to remote, which good or bad, it's a weird time to be a company that is growing and doing well right now. But I think people need this kind of structure and community to get their work done. So yeah, we run 54 sessions a month, and we're trying to help people work smarter.
Wow. Because I think about that one segment of my audience who are entrepreneurs who work. They're used to working at home, and the challenges of working at home by ourselves and being motivated and getting things done. That we're playing in the shallow. We're playing in the shallow pool way too much. Where the opportunity to go and spend that time in an environment, albeit Zoom, and I'm still by myself, but I'm with a group of people, and I've done all the right things to put some do not disturb on my door. Shut down.
Remove the distractions. Yeah.
Remove all those distractions and just focus on something. I think that's just that's just brilliant. It's obviously you're successful at this as it has grown and evolved since 2017, and now being forced into this remote world, which I would assume that once we get to the other side of this, you'll start offering live as well as keeping the remote piece.
Yeah, it's hard to know what work will look like. I'll say even 2 months from now, let alone 6 months now or a year from now. I think that the remote caves that we're running all the time now are pretty magical. People are saying they're getting 2 and 3 times the amount of work done. People are, feeling like they're a part of a community, and it's really a rewarding experience for a lot of people. But I will say that I miss being in the room with people. It's sort of the same thing. I don't know if I'm sure some of your listeners are, doing workouts at home. And I know I'm trying to work out watching a 15-minute, 20-minute YouTube video and, doing jumping jacks in front of my computer. And, I'm getting a decent workout, but it's definitely not the same as being in the room with people. Like, you want a good workout. It's being in a room with people that are all sweating and all pushing you. I think it's the same thing for CaveDay and for work. It's even more magical to be in the room. So we'll get back to running in-person ones, but for now, the remote caves are still a pretty magical experience.
Now, as we're having this conversation, something just popped into my head, something I've read, and I think it follows the same philosophy. And if it doesn't, please correct me. But I started reading stuff about flow, getting into the flow. Is that similar to this deep focus, deep work?
Yeah, definitely. We talk a lot about flow in our teaching and our workshops. So flow is this idea, for those of you who don't know, coined by a psychologist named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. I don't know how to spell his name, but his first name is Mihaly. So it's pronounced Mihai. But flow is this idea of being fully immersed in your work. It's sort of that in-between state where you're like not so bored that you want to quit and not so challenging that you want to give up. So it's sort of that in between. I'm challenged. I know what I'm doing. I'm like in the zone. And part of what we try to do in the cave is to like trick our brains into getting into that state faster, because our work performance goes up. We learn faster. We're more creative, and we're generally happier when we're fully immersed in whatever we're doing.
So how do we trick our brains?
So I'll give you. We have 3 conditions that we say when we run our workshops. We say there are 3 conditions to trick your brain into going into flow. Now, our brains are all intermittent in terms of like, I don't know about you. I didn't sleep very well last night. I sort of feel off today, and my brain can't just flip on and say, okay, go into flow. So the 3 conditions that we talk about are definition, where you're defining the work that you're doing for a set period of time. I'm saying, I'm going to write my newsletter for the next period of time and nothing else. Defining what I'm working on, and likely choosing one of my priority tasks. If we call deep work focus without distraction on a demanding task, we're choosing demanding tasks. It's hard to go into flow when you're just writing your emails or doing not demanding tasks. So definition, number 1. Number 2 is time. So setting a range of time. In the cave, I said our sprints are about 40 to 50 minutes. I'd recommend something similar, but having a set period of time where you say, I'm just going to do that amount of work for that period of time. And if it's possible, sometimes what we'll tell people is to get like a kitchen timer and just sort of twist it around 30, 40, 50 minutes. You don't have to, doesn't matter if it's 37 minutes or 41 minutes. If you have some flexibility in your schedule, twist it, turn it around, and it'll be the best $3 you ever spent on a timer, because that allows us to get into flow mode where it doesn't matter how much time, I'm letting the work sort of take the time that it needs, instead of saying like, oh, it's 3 more minutes until 3:00. I better just check my email real quick. So time is the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And third is focus. So we talk about removing all of your distractions, putting your phone on the other side of the room, across the house, whatever, out of sight, out of reach, closing all the tabs or applications you don't need, and monotasking. We're used to thinking that multitasking is a way to be productive. There's a lot of science, I'm not going to go into it all now, that shows us that monotasking is actually the best way for our work to get done and for our flow to happen. So definition, time, focus.
Yeah, I agree. We can't multitask. And I realized I discovered that I have a new type of situation going on. As somebody explained it, I have EADD, Entrepreneurial Attention Deficit Disorder.
Okay, tell me more.
Which is the shallow pool. I've got so many things I have to do. I think I create more distractions as an entrepreneur because, I do have a virtual assistant that helps, but it's still primarily everything laying on me. And I didn't make that up. I heard someone say that or read it in a book. And I went, that makes it even harder to get into this deep focus and to shut off all those distractions.
And I want to just also encourage you to be a little more self-forgiving and a little bit more recognizing that like that is what makes us successful as entrepreneurs, because we're aware of all the things going on, always thinking about work. But at CaveDay, we want to also make sure that we're aware that we don't burn out, that kind of constant work can get in the way of like our relationships to other people. It gets in the way of our self-care and making sure that we're sleeping enough and eating properly and exercising and all that. And that's a really important part of our work too. So I've never heard of EADD, but I think it's a real thing, whether it's diagnosable or not. I think, but when it comes to that first part, the definition and trying to define our work, one thing that we tell people is to define what finished looks like. I know it's really easy for us to come up with a to-do list of all the things that we want to do today. But for that sprint that you're about to do some work, or for today's day, what does finished look like? Because we all know that there is more work that we could be doing. I could be reaching out to more clients. I could be researching. I could be, as a creative person too, I could be designing more or writing another version. And if we just said that for the next period of time, for the next 45-minute sprint, or for the next day, I know that I have this most important task. I need to make this presentation, and finished looks like getting the slides done, or finished looks like 30 minutes without doing anything else, or finished looks like, just sending off the email. And I know that there is more work to be done, but unless we find some way to sort of cap our work day or our work periods of time, we're constantly working. And again, that's a dangerous relationship to work, where you sort of are giving and giving and it's never enough.
It's one of the curses of being an entrepreneur. I say this jokingly, but people ask me, how many hours do I work? And I go, I haven't worked one day since I started this business because I love what I do. Now ask my wife and you'll get a completely different answer. And it's not, and so it's actually been somewhat of a challenge. And I would take my work on vacation with me. This past year, we spent some time down on Sanibel Island. I didn't do my normal get up in the morning, work until 10. They get up. I did less amount of work. I enjoyed myself a lot more. But then again, what happens when you go on vacation? When you come back, it's all still sitting there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the curse of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that is. So as the workforce has now been forced out into a remote workforce, and by the time this airs, states we're all beginning to reopen. Here in Ohio, we started a soft opening on May 1st. Manufacturing distribution is back. Yesterday we had retail establishment open. Restaurants are starting to open again. But there's still this group that will probably work remotely, and I'm talking to other organizations that they're thinking about getting a smaller corporate real estate footprint. So you've talked about it, but from a remote workforce that's at home, who's not used to it, who's getting to it. And when I first started this business, Jake, you know what my biggest distraction was? The refrigerator would wink at me when I walked past it. The pantry would, the pantry would go,
right.
Come over, and then the TV, and it took about 2 solid years until I could actually work out of the house. So do you have any tips on, and you've talked about a lot of these, but specifically trying to adjust to a remote workforce when I have potentially other people in the house too? And that's been some of a big question I've been asked a number of times.
I think the short version, and it's not very satisfying. I don't think that there are like easy tips. I don't think it's sort of like, just do this and the refrigerator won't be enticing. Just do this and your couch won't sound better than your office chair. It doesn't work like that. I think ultimately what we have to do is, one, recognize that those things are real, and two, feel like we can manage our impulses. That in some ways, I could give you a lot of little tips, everything from sort of like portioning out your snacks ahead of time, or scheduling, in your day, when are you going to take breaks and what are you going to be doing, and planning that out ahead of time so that you can just stay on task and not feel like, now is not break time. Now is not my snack time. My snack time is at 11:30 and at 4:30 or whatever it is. I think those are small tips that could help, but ultimately we have to recognize that we need to manage ourselves and that we need to manage our impulses, and that if that's your weak point, how can we talk a lot at CaveDay about creating friction, right? Like putting steps in between you and what you want in order to make it harder. So things like, again, putting your phone out of reach, out of sight. If the refrigerator is distracting to you, can you put a note on the refrigerator? Can you work on the other side of the house? Can you put all of your food in Tupperware? Adding extra steps can get in the way of saying, like, actually, is it really worth it to me to do that? So maybe not a satisfying answer, but I think creating friction is probably the easiest tactical thing.
That wasn't what I was expecting, but that's what we need. I haven't thought about from that perspective, but I think I agree with you. There's no easy to do it, but I like the idea of creating friction, and that might help in adjusting to a new normal world where we're having to work. My office is in the basement. It's been here for a while, and just getting accustomed to our surroundings and the distractions that are there. And also recognizing the flexibility that we have.
Totally. Some of us love the independence and flexibility of working from home, and for other people, it's a curse that going to the office and having that structure is actually what they need. And I think in some ways, the more that we can define our workspace as, in the same way we can trick our brains into going into flow mode, we can trick our brains into going to work and I'm at work or I'm not at work. And part of that might be creating rituals at the beginning and end of your day, whether that's going for a fake commute or getting dressed and showering and sitting down at a specific. This is my table with my computer, and my computer does not leave this table. It doesn't join me on the couch. My computer doesn't come to bed with me. Creating defined spaces for work might help sort of say that, hey, this table, this corner, this chair, when I sit here, I'm at work, and when I stand up, I'm not. And that mental shift. One of the small things that we've told people before is, when working from home, even putting on shoes, you get dressed and you put on shoes and you say, when I wear shoes, I'm at work. And at the end of the day, I kick off my shoes and close my computer and I'm done. And those kind of mental rituals create the same thing that a commute will do, right? It's that mental transition away from home into work and vice versa.
That's a good point, because I've always gotten in the habit of once I started this, getting up in the morning, taking a shower, acting like I'm going to work, getting dressed, but not dressed if I was going into an office, but at least having a pair of jeans, a collared shirt or whatever. And then came this whole thing dressed above the waist. And I've tried it, and I found out that if I'm dressed above the waist and wearing sweatpants or scrub pants or something like that, it just doesn't feel the same. It just doesn't. And to that point, I make sure, and I have to be fully transparent. I'm wearing sweatpants today. It's just been one of those days that I came down, worked out, and then I got this call, and it's just kept moving in that direction. But it feels it's been feeling a little weird all day, and I should have just put on a pair of pants, came back down. But that's something I've been using to trick my brain.
Yeah, it's a great point that having that mental transition from I'm putting on pants, I'm showing up to work, it tells your brain to take it more seriously.
Yeah, it does. As we begin to wrap up, how can people contact you? How can people find you?
Sure. We're at CaveDay.org. We're not a nonprofit, but we are a community-based organization. CaveDay.org, you can learn about us, you can contact us, you can sign up for our mailing list for a free session, and find us on any social media. I believe we're just at CaveDay on Instagram, Twitter, Product Hunt, Facebook, all of the social medias. But go to our website, learn more at CaveDay.org.
Yeah, it's a great website. Product Hunt, I never heard of that one.
Product Hunt is a system for people to discover new tech products. It works a little bit like Reddit, where you post something and people can upvote it. And the more popular something becomes, the more it gets attention. So I've seen anything from online legal help to a hobby club, where every week you get a new hobby emailed to you, and together with a community you learn how to bake bread or whatever. There's really interesting products on that site. So
I'm going to have to go out and visit. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking time out. I've enjoyed this conversation. It really intrigues me because I know my weaknesses, and I know I need to strengthen and become that focused. And you've given me some great thought and ideas to do. And you will find me. I will sign up for the newsletter and take a test drive, because I'm even more curious now than I was prior to this interview. So thank you for your time. It's been great. I appreciate it. And I look forward to someday our paths actually crossing in real life.
Yeah, I'd love that. Hope to see you and your listeners in the cave soon. Thanks, Peter.
Cool. I would like to thank Jake for his time and explain how we need to find time to do some deep focus and deep work, and how important it is to get this done. So how are you going to change your mindset and set aside an hour a week or more to do the important work and to move your business forward faster? Will you decide to become one of the Cavedwellers? Or will you try to attempt this on your own? Either way, we need to spend more time in deep focus and deep work with no distractions. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment and leave a review on iTunes or whatever platform you download your podcast from. Also, please subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Make today your best day.
Like what you just heard? Visit c-suiteradio.com. C-Suite Radio, turning the volume up on business.